Thanks, Doug. I'm going to quickly try to share some inspirations about how companies are thinking today and what's on their mind. In part, what questions they're asking, but even more, what are they looking for? The question that we're hearing in a lot of boardrooms from a lot of CEOs is, quite frankly, why are we in business? They're waking up in the morning and they're wondering, is making money enough? They're looking at their neighbors, they're, quite frankly, at their country clubs, talking to other CEOs. And the conversation they're having is, why are we getting out of bed in the morning? What do we want to do? And some of that inspiration, the answer to that, we're seeing around the world. And what they want is they want to be a part of this sort of new movement of being part of building a better world. And I think we saw that in images that we saw from Arab Spring, where American companies, Facebook in particular, was influential in fostering this kind of change. And I think that in boardrooms across, certainly America, but really across the world, they're looking at how they can be a part of that. Now, it's not at all personally motivated. They're recognizing that there's a change in people, right? Consumers, employees, in particular young millennials who are graduating college, are looking for more than just a job. They're looking for a way to make a difference. And despite the numbers that you hear about unemployment, trying to find highly skilled, the most talented workers is still a challenge for these big corporations. They compete not just in their own category, but across all categories. And so what they're starting to see is people want them to be kind, socially responsible, and friendly. People aren't looking so much for companies that are trendy and glamorous anymore. So I'm going to run a very, very short film that's the provocation that we use when we're talking to these boardrooms, and then afterwards share a little bit of the insights of what they're doing about it. Let's see if that works.
May you live in interesting times. Our times are interesting. Maybe a bit too interesting. Worldwide, we face worsening problems, deepening needs, greater challenges, all accompanied by a sense of urgency. Governments can't do it all. Neither can NGOs, charities, or foundations. What about business? What about business? The way forward was not clear, but then people started thinking and talking. They talked about social responsibility and a sense of purpose, about emerging markets and new opportunities. Soon, they were talking about new products, new services, bold partnerships, and a whole new way of doing business. The words of the future took shape: purpose, corporate citizenship, thick value, win-win, social good equals business good. Wait, social good is the same thing as business good? Really? We asked the leaders what they thought. We listened to the best of class conversation. We listened, we learned, and we made sense of it all. From the best in class, we heard the same things over and over again. We heard principles for charting a course in a new world of business. Business strategy can no longer ignore the social good. They are partners, not opponents. Together, they spell innovation and success. The way forward is clear. The future is here. The point is that purpose drives everything we do. Interesting times? Indeed.
So this is the conversation that we're hearing in some of the leading corporations. And just to dive into it a little bit more, consider the provocation: social good equals business good. So what we're finding is some of the leading companies aren't satisfied anymore in just creating profits. They're trying to identify ways that they can make a social contribution while advancing their business. Okay? And one of the best in-class examples of that, I think, is IBM. And when you consider, for example, the Smarter Cities program, really what IBM has done is they've looked for a way to make a contribution to change cities, to help solve problems. But as they're solving those problems, they're really developing whole new areas of business for themselves. They're training their employees feel like they're more engaged, and they're growing a big profit center. So they're creating a social good, but it's very much a part of doing business good. In fact, in conversations with IBM, they no longer think about charitable contributions and philanthropic contributions exclusively, but they're really looking at a holistic answer of how that impacts their whole business. Second provocation that we talk to with these companies, and as I mentioned these, consider how when you're having a conversation with a company, how you can engage them in a way that makes an impact on them, not just as a charitable gift, but something that helps build their business. So when we talked to Nike, they talked about how everything they do builds from their position of strength, which is sports and fitness, and in fact also recycling. They've become a leader in recycling. Another provocation in talking with Ericsson is they're interested in creating thick value. So the idea of just giving money away is much less interesting than trying to create a product or a service that adds to the society that they're living in, but at the same time contributes to the company. So in the case of Ericsson, they launched a mobile service in Latin America that helped collect health data. They did it on their own dime, and they created a difference in allowing people to understand health trends that used to take 6 weeks to figure out, and now they can figure out in a matter of days. But in creating that program, they actually created a whole new business for themselves. And that business is data collection, which they're now spinning off into a separate company. So what these companies are starting to realize is, in the act of creating social good, they can actually create business value. And again, more and more they're orienting in that direction. In the case of Dell, we had a long conversation with them. They became leaders in recycling. But very often you'll find that companies aren't talking about things first, they're actually doing it first. In the case of Dell, they did it for 4 years, really hardcore recycling and understanding the different materials that went into their products, how to take those materials back out of the waste stream, recycle them, and then I think in a moment of true inspiration realize that by holding this to themselves and creating competitive advantage, they actually didn't create as much value as they could. And so they released all the information to the other computer manufacturers and created an industry-wide initiative so that recycling was more universal and more fully accepted. And although it created value for their competitors, they actually found it created more value for themselves. So I think, in that sense, a very inspirational approach to what they were doing. The other thing that we're finding, and again, this is something very important to consider as you're dealing with these companies, they very often want to talk to their employees first before they talk on the outside. Very interesting conversation we had was with Hewlett-Packard, who has a massive program for social responsibility using their technology, their services, but they're not talking about it at all on the outside. They're actually using their employees as ambassadors and training their employees on what they're doing so that 125,000 people around the world can actually start to make a difference before Hewlett-Packard communicates that to everybody else. So very often these internal programs are an opportunity to engage early on with these large corporations. And then another trend that we're finding is that these companies are looking to partner, and partner broadly. A great example of this was with General Mills. General Mills had a fabulous program, which I'm sure many of you know, called Box Tops for Education, which originally was a program exclusively for General Mills. But again, in analyzing both the social good and the business good that they could create with it, they looked at it and they said there's an opportunity here to partner more broadly. They brought other manufacturers in, and now they have a program that generates $65 million for education annually that's much more powerful than it was originally. So they're looking, as I'm sure many of you are as well, to find ways to partner in new and different ways that 5 or 10 years ago were unimaginable. And then finally, all these companies are looking for continuous innovation. What they realize is that social change, social good, business good is part of a partnership that's going to be an ongoing partnership. It's no longer identifying a single program that's going to be the answer and they can check a box. It's really about how are they going to continuously improve their company, improve the community around them, and quite frankly, more and more companies looking to improve the world. Thank you very much.